Hello, everybody. My name is Eric Alonso. I'm part of the La MaMa family, and I'm going to be the host for the night for this live talk. And I'm sitting down here with,
Paul Lazar. I knew I'd remember.
and on his left, we have,
Jerry Lieblich.
and we're going to be talking about the upcoming production of The Barbarians, written by Jerry over here. Jerry is the founder of Third Year, and you're also that's the production company. I would love to hear why you name it the Third Year.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't remember now. I think I was thinking about. I think in one way, I really write from my ears, and I think about sound a lot. I was a musician growing up, and so I really write and think orally. And my interest in language is also an interest in imagination and in how listening to language can open up something inside and open up an imaginative world. And so it felt like sort of talking to like the idea of third eye, right? Of like seeing a different way or hearing a different way. But also it's kind of weird and a little monstrous and a little freakish. And it kind of had all those things together that felt right.
One of the things that's fascinating about your work is that it's an intersection of theater, poetry, music, and all of those things. And Paul, you as well. You're an actor. You're a director. You do dance. You do choreography. So it's like a match made in heaven.
Who, you mean me and Jerry?
Yes.
Just, when you were talking about third year
Mm.
and talking about your poetic sense, I was just thinking about the lead actor in our piece is Steve Meller, who is a veteran of working with incredibly challenging language and being able to interpret it. I mean, he's won Obies for the way he does Mac Wellman's work, who's like the ultimate language poet of a theater maker. So the next generation of those artists is the star of the next generation of those writers, in my opinion, is Jerry. So it's quite wonderful that Steve Meller, who really was the original with being able to bring incredible level of humor and specificity to speaking language that's exceptional and interesting and different than naturalistic language, is rendered by Steve Meller in our production, and that's a great thing about our show.
I was reading the script earlier today again, and it's very poetic. Yeah, I don't know how.
But don't give people the idea that it's some poetry,
It is
because
not
it's
poetry.
friggin' hilarious,
It's a little
is
bit
what
of
it
everything.
is.
But that's what's wonderful about it. Like you come with all this background in philosophy and mastery of language, and then Paul Lazar comes in and realizes, oh, this thing right here is funny, and just it elevates the work.
Yeah, Paul at one point pointed out how both of us really love cartoons, and Steve
Oh.
does too. Steve is a cartoonist and wrote for Ren and Stimpy at a point, which is like about as close to the divine as one can be.
Yeah.
And I think there is that sensibility that we share. That's so in the writing, even as You're right. Like I have a philosophy background. I have a poetry part of my life. Like I think about those highfalutin things, but then ultimately like write to really amuse myself and amuse that part of me that loves Ren and Stimpy.
You started writing the script 2016 before the election, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how long before the election was that? What did we know when you started writing?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it. It was in my first semester of grad school at Brooklyn College, studying with Mac Wellman, the aforementioned. And so I probably wrote it from like September to November of 2016. So most of the writing was before the election, and was writing really thinking that Hillary was going to win,
Oh wow!
but
yeah.
still sitting in the kind of awful stew of language and rhetoric and command that was in that time, and just how awful it all felt.
Yeah.
And then Yeah, because my first, like the first read through of it in class was, I think it was the week. It was like either the week right before the election or right after the election that I first heard it out loud.
Yep. And when did Paul start getting involved in the project?
Not too long after that, like sometime in 2017 was when we did our first read through at New York Theater Workshop.
Right.
I want to say it was like the back half of 2017.
That sounds right. Yeah, Jerry just sent the script to me. His agent is somebody that I guess we had worked with. I don't know. But it was basically sent cold, you might say. And, you know, just reading through it, I immediately felt very excited and entertained and thought I would love the challenge of trying to be involved in staging this.
You were on board right away.
Totally, yeah.
So the script came first before you met in person?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just emailed me the script, and I read it and was like, I'd love to continue to work on it. You know, we didn't necessarily know, I guess, that we would find the opportunity to make a full production, even for sure, initially. But we knew we wanted to dig in deeper, and then it became more and more clear that it would be just great to stage this.
Yeah, I think the first time I talked to both of you was November last year.
Sounds right.
And then around that time, you were doing a little bit of a stage reading presentation at the Collapsible Hall. And I had never been there before, and I'm so glad you invited me there. It was a wonderful evening. Have you been working with them for a long time? What else can you tell us about Collapsible Hall?
So that came through in part. So one of our partners on the show is a really wonderful company called Immediate Medium, who has a relationship with the Collapsible Hole that is Byzantine, and I don't completely know, but everybody knows everybody. But Immediate Medium is basically, they're like a kind of support structure producing partner for experimental theater. And they've been huge for us. And so one of the things, they gave us some rehearsal space at Collapsible Hole. But then also Lisa Claire, who is a friend of mine from grad school, curated that evening that you went to at the Collapsible Hole. And she's also involved with Immediate Medium. So it's all just people being nice to each other, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, the downtown theater world kind of operates that way. Maybe Uptown Theater does too, for all I know, which is there's a kind of shared aesthetic in very loose terms, and there's just a sea of people that recognize each other in many senses of that word, and they're all accessible to one another to fulfill the needs of each other's work.
I think that evening we saw poetry, we saw incredible dance, we saw a presentation of the Barbarians. It was in an hour, it was a lot of work, and it was very inspiring. I can't wait to go again.
And you know, a danger in the downtown theater is that venues now are evaporating to an extent. And one of the real sacrifices is that there's less opportunity for people that are at all different levels of evolution of their work to have a chance to put work out in its sort of formative phase when it's in progress, which is a pretty important thing, and it's really important for people that are starting out. And there used to be much more opportunity to do that and show that work, like Avant-Garde-Rama at PS 122, which is definitely no more. So the fact that Collapsible Hole creates a night or nights that where that's possible is just a huge infusion of a necessary opportunity for downtown theater makers.
And it felt like you don't know where this is going. And
Yeah.
I read something about you, Jerry, that says their work experiments with language as a way to explore unexpected textures of consciousness and attention. So on that same topic, that exploration of consciousness, are you trying to tap into like these things that we're not expressing, but are, and trying to manifest it through your writing. Is that?
Yeah, I mean, I would say, in a very basic way, the language that we use to think, the language we use to speak, and the thoughts we use to think matter and affect the kinds of things we're able to say and the kinds of things we're able to think.
Yeah.
And so what I'm interested in is in playing with language and smudging language and making the experience of it different, trying to open up a space for different kinds of thinking. So there's a poet I really love named Joan Rotalick who talks about a function of poetry can be to change the geometry of attention. And the idea is that the world we live in, with its uncountable problems, those problems exist within paradigms of thought and ways of thinking and ways of organizing the world that create those problems. And there is an extent to which to try to address those problems using those same systems of thought and ways of organizing the world is not actually going to solve them, because it always has its feet in those systems of thought that are the problem. And so this is something Adorno talks about, I got through reading Giulio Jarco, that the language poets talked about in the 70s, this idea that in a kind of utopian way, to play with non-understanding and baffling that what feels like normal sense as a way to try to reach towards at least opening a little bit of space where my brain feels a little different and it feels like there's possibility, versus I think especially systems of oppressive power act with a sense of inevitability. And whether that's the inevitability of like technological progress or the inevitability of like encroaching fascism, any of these things sort of act as if they are natural systems. And to just have a little space, which might be the space of like a dumb fart joke, or it might be the space of like a sentence that doesn't line up, that sort of makes your brain glitch a little bit. That's the hope that I'm going for.
Yeah, I think Dr. Maya Angelou used to say, I believe that words are things, that they leave your mouth and they crawl through the furniture and the floor and then through your leg and finally get into you. And she was convinced that one day we'll be able to measure the power of words. And I'm sure we could. And there's a particular word that in your script that I just kept going to the point that I have to go back and look for the etymology of the word war. And war, I didn't know, that comes from Proto-German word that meant confusion.
Really?
And mixture. And that really caught me by surprise.
That's
Yeah.
amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But yeah, that's what your script did to me in many other ways.
That's great. That's
Yeah.
great to hear.
What do you have there, Paul?
What?
Oh, you're just crossing your
Oh,
arm. I thought you
no,
were going for
no.
something.
I was just realizing that I need to talk into the mic when I talk.
Yeah.
Somehow it just came to me.
Yeah. So I do have a question again about the script. Like, how long before you started writing it in 2016 was this in your head, or like bothering you, or like calling you?
Like 0 seconds.
Oh, really? You
Yeah.
just started.
Yeah, part of my I was trying to make a break with the way I'd written previous plays, which the last couple plays I had written, I really had not a sense of like the whole plot, but I had kind of a formal structure in mind. And I was like, okay, this is like kind of a game that I'm going to play. And what I wanted to do with this was really give myself the procedure of like, you're going to start at the beginning and go forward and not know what the next word is and just go. And which is why the play is so associative. And then I did some reordering, a lot of cutting and refining, but really let the plot unfold as it was going. And that also necessarily meant whatever was on my mind was necessarily coming through.
Yeah.
And I've learned that's at least one of the ways that I write. And part of what's nice about it is I don't need to like worry about saying something coherent or interesting, because whatever I'm concerned with is going to happen in the play whether I want it to or not.
And it reads really fast. It's like 70 pages, but it reads really fast. I don't know how long the show is running for right now. Do
About
you know?
90 minutes.
About 90 minutes. That is there an intermission or not really?
No.
Nope.
You get once your ass is in that seat, you're stuck, man.
For 90 minutes. So it's gonna be fun. I also started. I kept thinking, is this the present? Where are we? You talk about Watergate, you talk about Twitter, and then you call it X, and then it's 1941, and then there's 9/11, and then I dare say one of the characters, it's an allusion to AI here and there. I don't even. So which time and space are we?
Yes.
That's a great. That's it.
I mean, to me, the thing that when a lot of what makes it cohesive is there's certain concepts that are true of, the Mexican-American War, 9/11, World War I. Take your pick, and those concepts become the organizing principle rather than the historical consistency.
Yeah, but it didn't bother me at all. I thought
No,
it was
well, that's
great.
why. Yeah, I agree.
loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think like one of the things the play is playing with as its material is like the fluidity of time, the fluidity of place, just by the fact of the play is concerned with how language shapes reality, and in the theater it does it in a very particular way where you can say something is true and then it's true. And the play really just sort of is a long enjoyment of that fact of saying, and now we're in this place, and now this person is talking, and now it's this time, and that it all becomes coherent because we are all still sitting here in those 90 minutes, and Paul won't let us leave.
Yeah, I think that's part of your artistic statement, which is what can language do in the context of the theater that cannot do out there, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. And what's Paul Lazar gonna do with that?
What is he gonna do? No, it's me and well, I feel that in conjunction with Jerry in the room and the cast in the room, the sense of play is just so rife throughout the script that everybody just got on into the spirit of the play part of play, and we just entertain one another, and I think we made something that'll be highly entertaining for an audience as well.
Was there a sense of devising in?
Yeah, I would say so. Yeah, in that devising in the sense that the script would imply a certain kind of thing has to happen. So then we would do it, and then we would refine it, and we had to invent things to make the world and the idea in the circumstance of the play to make them manifest. We had to invent things. That's the interesting thing about devising, or that term, which is that it's probably in some sense of the term, it's probably mandatory for anything that comes to life is a level of devising.
I also think it's the very particular way that you run a rehearsal room.
Oh,
that it's
maybe so.
That I think partly it's how you run the room, and partly it's the actors that we're working with who are great.
Yeah.
Where I think you've made it very clear that everybody can and should have ideas about everything.
True.
And can and should share them.
True.
And that your reaction is always, yeah, let's try it. And then we play with it and something happens. And as a result, I think that's that feeling of play you're talking about also, is like, there really is hardly a moment somebody's like, well, what if we try this thing? And that's more fun.
Yeah, that gets everybody in the water and gets everybody jumping in, and so I guess that's true.
What was the casting process like for this show?
It varied from the whole spectrum in the sense that some of it, and not a small amount of it, was like classic downtown theater. Oh, what if Jess does this part, just because everybody kind of knows one another and you know what people's qualities are. So you don't have to audition them per se. You just think of people that are in that world that might want to do it. So there's that end of the spectrum. But then also there was a certain parts, one part in particular, the part of the character called St. Crispin's Day Massacre.
Yes.
That we kind of couldn't quite find the perfect person that way that I just described. So we had an audition in an audition room and callbacks and seeing people over and over, many people, many really good people. So it was like the classic casting thing, you know? And then it was great because then we found Jenny Aikida, and she's just fantastic. She's just great. So we used all the different methods, you know, and that combination is worked for us.
What's fascinating to the reader, I guess to the director, to the actor, it's that even just the name of the character is giving us a lot of information. Okay, Saint Crispin, okay, but a saint, okay, but why a saint? Oh, Catholic, okay, but why this one in particular? Like, I could say the same about every other character, right?
Yeah.
No.
Old dog turd.
Yes. Why old dog turd? Why not new dog turd?
Dad. Well,
Yeah, no, you're right. I think there's Paul, maybe you know this. There's that Gertrude Stein play, Dr. Faustus Lights the Lights.
Yeah.
Isn't there a character in it whose name is like Maria and Anna or something like that? Her name is two names.
Oh, I mean, I know it just from the
Yeah.
Worcester Group's version,
Yeah,
but I don't know the characters.
Yeah.
But I believe it.
There's I remember reading that, and then also those Dada plays, what's it, Mr. Anti-Pyrene Fire Extinguisher, and just how fun that is to have wacky names on the page. It's just something nice to look at too.
Yeah,
that
it's true.
Worcester Group performance is incredible.
Yeah.
You do reference Marlowe once in the script,
of course.
right? You had to be there.
Oh yeah, he's got to make his way in.
Yeah.
Really funny.
So, I read you on an article talking about non-normative theater.
Me?
Yeah.
Oh.
And is this what we're doing here? Is this non-normative theater?
Non-normative.
I call it avant-garde. Some people call it Dada. It has elements of all of the above, I guess.
I can't believe, I didn't know I ever said the word normative, but I believe you. I said non-normative theater. I wonder.
I might have said it.
Oh, you went and
Sounds
did
like
that
me.
ventriloquy thing on me. Oh,
I think this is when we talked to Eve.
Yeah. That's that
Eve
article.
for CultureBot.
Oh,
When we both ordered the same spanakopita and muffin.
That's the one.
okay. Okay, now I see
So
it.
it was you?
So what was
Maybe
I thinking when you said that?
I think what came up was you. Eve maybe said something about avant-garde, and you were like, yeah, or downtown or experimental, and you're like, yeah, experimental is sort of it's a catch-all term that can also become a trope in and of itself.
Yeah.
And you were just unsatisfied with that. I think I said non-normative theater could be a word that we use.
I get you.
I'm naming a movement right now. That's what's happening.
Got you. Yeah. I'm a non-normal. So I would be
You're
a
non-normie.
Non-normie.
Yeah.
I want to put a ist on it, just because then it's a real
Non-normativist?
like the surrealists, the non-normativists. I
sounds
want
nice.
to be up there with Picasso and who. Anyway,
one of the things I love is say you go to the Metropolitan Opera House, and then right in the front you have these paintings by Chagall. They're beautiful avant-garde paintings. Meeting with the Apollonian Opera, you see a Jasper Jones piece meeting the ballet at the David Koch Theater. You have this merging of those two worlds. There's something about these worlds, your interest in philosophy, there's something about music, whether it's classic music, opera, whatever, and the avant-garde and the more Dionysian part of the art that I think you merge very well, Jerry, and you understand very well. And I think that's, to me, that there's a lot of that in this piece of work.
The thing that's coming to mind is the other instance of that being merged very well is Looney Tunes. Full of classical music. Oh yeah,
I
full of
never
classical
thought of
music.
that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I never thought of
Yeah,
that.
it's full of classical music. I mean, so is Ren and Stimpy, you know? Like, there is something about putting those together that just has a fun frisson to it.
Cartoons. I'm going to keep cartoons in
Cartoons.
my mind next time I read your script. Because
That's
I
a
do
good
want to read it a
idea.
couple of times before I come see it.
Oh,
because
that's a great idea.
as a director, I'm like, how would I put this play
Yeah,
together?
yeah.
And then see what you come.
Yeah,
up with.
yeah,
It's
that's
gonna be a
fun.
fascinating
I-
experience.
I think that's a cool idea.
That's gonna be
Yeah.
good. I do want to ask you about your experience with La Mama before this. I don't know, when did La Mama first come into your stream of consciousness?
This room
Yes.
is I feel like it's so sewn into this Ellen Stewart room because in the 1980s, my wife, who's known as a choreographer,
Yeah.
was a dancer at that time and was dancing with the Korean choreographer Sincha Hong.
Okay.
And I would see Annie just when we first met dancing Sincha's work on this floor here.
Oh.
So that's one huge
This-
thing about this room.
Great.
And I just always remember Ellen Stewart walking at the beginning of a show and ringing the bell and talking to everybody. And if I thought about it, if we weren't on camera, I would be able to probably think of any number of performances I've seen in this room that were very meaningful to me. Rooms like this are more and more scarce in New York theater. They're just rife with all the amazing vibrations of all the
Yeah.
incredible history. I mean, Tadeusz Kantor
Yeah.
was on this
Yeah,
stage,
yeah.
and Peter Brook's early work
Exactly.
was. I mean, it's nuts. This room is
You-
just. I mean, when I thought about the play,
I get chills just you say, like
It's
you
true.
feel it in the room.
absolutely. And when I thought about the play, and when we thought, well, let's think if we really could do a full production, right? And I thought, like, where would I dream of doing the production? And this room is it for me, like the place to do this particular play. And here we are, which is great.
I came here first as an assistant director last year, and it was immediate. Just looking at Ellen Stewart's photo out at the hall it hit me like a wave. And then walking into this room still does it to me. And I think it's important to tap into that energy and ride that wave. One of the things that I usually recommend to anybody doing a production here, because you could read about it, you could know about it, but walking into the archive and seeing the amount of work that has been done through here by incredible artists, every one of them, it grounds you somewhere else and makes you realize, oh, I'm becoming part of that. It's fascinating.
Is the archive something that's available to the public?
Yes.
Because I just want to say for anybody that's watching this show, for the millions of people that are watching this show, that the archive of all the work, that the history is and artifacts from that work is available here at La Mama to visit and tour. So I recommend that.
It is an impressive experience, I have to say. And everybody that comes makes a production here becomes part of that legacy too. And the Barbarians is becoming part of that. Jerry, what about you? When did La Mama become part of your consciousness?
Yeah, I feel like it was one of the spaces I always, like, I knew about before I moved to New York, when I was just sort of asking around, like, what are the theaters I should pay attention to? And I think, like, my first experience here, I mean, it's like maybe almost 15 years ago, but I remember seeing, I think it was a Maybu Mines show. And it's like, I have just kind of like vague sense memory of it, of like sitting all the way in the back and there being these like this gigantic like cardboard cutout of a truck coming on, and like just I remember these giant elements.
Wow.
And God, this incredible actor who I think died a year or two ago.
Fred Newman?
No, I want to say, what's her name? Starts with a
yeah.
V.
Yeah, you mean. Oh my God, I can't believe it.
Yeah, who is just like, who is just incredible in it, and like holding court in this amazing way in it. And just
Makes me
yeah,
sick. I gotta look up her name.
I don't know, and it's I couldn't tell you anything about the play besides this. Like, I love that you're doing this right now.
Yeah, we
I
need to
gotta
find
look up
out
her
the name.
Great.
That wouldn't be right.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't believe it's just my aging brain that I can't remember it. It's not that she's not a legend. So
And-
hold
and-
on, people.
Is it for both of you the first time producing something? You've been
It-
here as an audience, but it's the
Mhm.
first time that you're
It is for
bringing
me.
your work.
Paul might have to look it up though.
It is for you.
When we were here in this room with our cast a couple days ago,
Yeah.
there was some downtime, and Steve Meller, who I spoke about, who's just like does a performance of a lifetime in this piece. I mean, Steve alone is a reason to come. So Steve was like, these are the plays I've done in this room. You know, 2 Sam Shepard plays, 2 Mac Wellman, like classic Mac plays, and a bunch of others that, you know, like a whole raft of plays where it's just like, oh, Steve, I wish I'd seen every one of them. But, you know, so he's worked here
Amazing.
like crazy on really cool stuff.
I think you were busy doing actual work with the actors while he was telling me about how in one of those Sam Shepard plays they were on a raked stage, and how one night somebody mopped the stage right before the show, and so every time an actor walked out, they just slid all the way down the stage.
Oh my God. Well, it's really lovely to see you taking ownership of the Ellen Stewart. I loved walking into this space and seeing the actors just filling the space,
Yeah.
walking around.
I'm
Ruth Malachek. Ruth
There it is.
Malachek. Oh
all
my
right.
God.
We got it.
Thank you, everyone.
And we're done.
And we're done. And that's it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I'm really thrilled to see what the design is going to feel like in here. I think Amy Rubin has done such a good job making a set that is like in such conversation with this space that it doesn't feel like a set being plopped in, but it feels like, I don't know, it is such a, like the architecture here is so interesting.
It's pretty unique, yeah.
And to really lean into that in a deep way, I think it's going to feel really cool.
I've seen so many iterations of what can be done here, and I keep seeing more.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the show opens February 14th,
Yeah.
Valentine's Day. Is there a reason for that? And then runs all the way until March. Oh, it's because the ethos of your relationship with Annie kind of happened in this space.
That's why we picked
So
Valentine's
it's a-
Day.
That's it.
It's an homage to your relationship.
Absolutely.
But yeah, it's going to run from February 14th to March 2nd. Who is your dream audience?
You.
99 paying customers.
99 paying customers.
Is
night,
my
a
dream.
night.
A night.
Yeah.
99 paying customers a night. Is that too much to ask? I mean, considering that in the play is Anne Gridley, Jess Barbagallo, Steve Meller, Jenny Aikida, and
Lorraine Weiss
Noreen Weiss. Did I
and Chloe Claudel.
and Chloe Claudel. I mean, of our studio audience out there, there's at least one of those names has huge resonance, if not many. So come dig them. They're
They
fantastic.
really are.
Yeah.
Well, I want to say thank you because you came straight from your rehearsal to do this.
True.
So I'm pretty sure that you're exhausted.
True.
So we really appreciate your time to talk about this, the play, and I'm really, really looking forward to see what you two and the team came up with.
Thank you so much. It's a pleasure to talk to you, and I'm so appreciative of your interest and enthusiasm.
All right.
Yeah, same. Thanks
Come
for having
see
us.
the show.